When the decision was made to move with OutSystems, I was like, there's no way. This is too huge. There's just no way I'll be able to do it. I didn't see, they were telling us all the benefits and the value. And I was like, I was a little resistant to change at the beginning. And then we had the boot camp, and I was like, okay, well, I really have no choice. So let's
Oh.
dig in and let's embrace this. And the rest is history.
Hi, Elise. Welcome to Drag and Drop.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. We've known each other for a while now, so I thought it'd be good to finally get you on. And I know you shared your journey a bit briefly last year in Miami, but I thought it'd be good to go into a bit more detail and find out a bit more about yourself and your journey with OutSystems.
Yeah. Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. Well, it'd be good to start with a bit of a introduction to yourself for those who don't know you in the community, a bit of background to yourself.
Sure. So I actually was a music performance major. I had no idea that I would become a developer. I spent a lot of my career working for one of the major wireless carriers in the US and sort of fell into it because SharePoint and Intex were talking and doing some process automation, and I started getting involved in that. And I found that I really enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it, more than the business analyst work or the project manager work that I had been doing before. And so I just kept going. I kept looking for more opportunities. I kept refining my skills. And eventually the company purchased the OutSystems platform, and we started digging into that software, and I fell in love with OutSystems. So just a little bit about
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And, obviously, it was more of a company decision, right? And then you kind of adopted the platform,
Hmm.
and maybe because you didn't have that traditional background that most engineers have, they tend to be skeptical when they hear of low code and things like that, right? So what was your kind of initial impression of the platform when kind of you were told that they're adopting OutSystems?
Yeah, I was actually skeptical. We had
Okay.
been using, yeah, I had fallen, we had done a proof of concept and fell in love with K2 Appit, and
Right.
so I was all in with K2 Appit. And when the decision was made to move without systems, I was like, there's no way. This is too huge. There's just no way I'll be able to do it. I didn't see, they were telling us all the benefits and the value, and I was like, I was a little resistant to change at the beginning. And then we had the boot camp, and I was like, okay, well, I really have no choice. So let's
Oh.
dig in and let's embrace this. And the rest is history. As soon as we got through that, like beginning, inertia of trying to
Oh.
learn a new platform, it was a done deal. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I was, as much as I liked K2 app, but I was like, yeah, no, this one's better. And
See you later. Yeah.
I really like, this is more my jam than K2 Appet. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Obviously, people always talk about obviously the positives and how much they love, the technology they work with. But I'm interested to kind of dive into obviously being new to the platform. It takes time to adopt it
Yes.
and understand it. So what were some of I'd say the kind of hard lessons, tough parts in the first few months of learning a new, because obviously you do this
Mhm.
training, there's only so much you can do and then you need to start building, so what were some of those kind of challenges you had early on?
I think the biggest one for me was trying to forget everything I knew about the other platforms that I've been working
Mm.
in and not putting those processes back in those boxes, if that makes sense. This is how it applies to this platform. This is how it should apply moving forward. But without systems, you can excuse me, without systems, you can do so much more. So trying not to put things in that box of the constraints of the platform you had before, whereas out systems, if a process wasn't working the way you would want it to because of the system constraints of the other platform, sky's the limit, right? Without systems. So with me, it was taking those boundaries off of my process mind and realizing that I could make it a much better user experience. We did have a bit of a time crunch to
Mm.
migrate apps, so that was also the hard part, was learning so much on a new platform within a short amount of time, and getting that rapid development done. So that those two things were the biggest hurdles for us, and that was only because of time. If we'd had time to move things a little bit better and properly map an existing
Uh-huh.
to new, I don't think it would have been. I was personally overwhelmed just because you had to do
Yeah.
so much in a short amount of time. But once we had gotten through that hurdle and made it through, then I was so excited. I actually wanted to go back and redo everything. You learn so much and you're getting your
Yeah.
hands dirty and you're like, I could do it 16 different ways. Which
Yeah.
way do I want to do it? And then you get in and you're like, oh, I wish I had done it that way. And so it was hard not to go back and do that and do your rework. But there was just so much to learn. And it was not listening to the fear, just
Mm.
going for it, getting your hands dirty, and just seeing everything that you could do, all the possibilities, right?
Yeah.
Seemingly endless at that point in time.
Yeah, yeah. And you talked about obviously, yeah, getting to a point where you wanted to go back and do it again, right? Because there's so many other ways to do it. But
Yeah.
what's that timeline like? When you look at that kind of, you're at that, you're making that successful transition where now you understand the platform. How long would you say that process was for you?
It never ends.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It never ends. I say, the beginning where you're just deer in the headlights and trying to get used to
Mm,
it. For us, because we were dropped into it so quickly and on the team that I was on, it was really probably a matter of a month or two before we were like, okay, I'm no longer lost. Now I know what these tabs mean and I know where to find
yeah.
things and search and find them. And so that's where I felt like we used to equate it to like K through 12, elementary school grades. I felt like in the first couple of months, I was no longer kindergarten, preschool. I was like
Yeah.
more second grade. And then as you kept going, I felt by the time I moved out of the wireless carrier into my own, contracting area, I
Mm,
felt like I was more like junior high. So there's just you never stop absorbing, you never stop learning the platform, and you always realize on a new day, oh man, I could have done. This is. It's always
yeah.
like there's more to learn, and you just never stop growing on this platform.
Yeah. Did you have any, obviously I think we've spoken about this before, there's a shortage of OutSystems developers in the United States, right? So did you have this concern around, and did you even kind of look into the market? Okay, I'm now having to learn this technology because that's the role I've got. Did you have any concerns around, okay, is this thing going to grow? Is it going to help my career going forward?
I knew that they were, at that time in Portugal still, and I knew that it was such a powerful platform that I knew more people would adopt it in the US. I hadn't at that point, didn't even know that they were planning on, doing anything in the US
Yeah.
space. So, I knew that it was a powerful platform. I knew that there were good sized companies in the US already that had
Mm,
the software. And so I felt kind of like I was in the right place at the right time
yeah.
and
Yeah.
ramping up on the right skills to be in sort of a niche
Yeah.
skill set. And as soon as my other role was Rift, I did the soul searching. Do I
Yeah.
go back and do like Microsoft Power Platform,
Mm,
which no shade there, it's not as good as
mm,
OutSystems.
yeah.
Um, but I did think about that. Do I go and do different low code? Do I
Mm,
stay with OutSystems? Do I learn something new like Appian or Salesforce? And I just love this platform so much for someone who's not a full stack dev. The ease of use with the drag and drop, the community, the training. I was like, I think I'm going to stick with it. I think I'm going to find out if I can make a go of it. And it's paid out so far.
yeah. Here we are still today, right? So definitely. And how important do you think is the mindset compared to just technical ability when someone's making a move in technology?
So mindset, I think, is really important. I think there was a gal on my team who wasn't really excited about moving platforms
Mm,
again. She approached it with, I'm, it's overwhelming. I'm never going to learn it.
mm,
I'm not good enough and self-fulfilling, right? So I think it's incredibly important. And every day is, like I said, you learn something new every day. And the community too, man, the community is amazing and
yeah.
so supportive. And even OutSystems is very, very supportive. They help like no other's business. I think that between their willingness to teach us and the mindset of, I'm just going to keep doing it every day, I'm going to learn something new, I'm just going to keep going, was extremely important in the overall success. I also think it's important to never approach it with, I know everything, I'm good to
Yeah.
go, I don't need to learn anything else, your experience doesn't matter.
Mm,
I think
yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
important because I've learned a ton from another developer on my project who's an Appian administrator.
Mm,
And and so your low code, even the low code community is the same way. And you start to
mm,
learn from each other. And every day you can grow and do something new. And the only thing that can prevent you from doing that is shutting down and thinking that you know everything. So I think mindset is incredibly important.
Yeah, yeah. And, now that you're kind of, full-fledged in the OutSystems community as a developer, compared to kind of how your career was before, how's kind of, do you feel, and like you said, I think it's one of those things, obviously now with the introduction of AI as well, there's just continuous learning, right? So how would you compare kind of the last few years since doing the transition to your career versus before that?
Rapid.
Yeah,
The only thing that comes we hear it all the time, rapid development, and it's the same. I think
yeah,
we're all, like, embracing what's coming, and we all wanna soak it up like a sponge and learn it and adopt it, and then see how it shifts our careers. With AI, we know what things are going to change, and I'm excited to see how it does shift, but we're all kind of like, "All right, we're on a really fast roller coaster. Let's
yeah,
see where we're going." And the community has just been I think I've made some really good friends
yeah.
just in the community alone, from just wanting to learn from each other and see what's coming and be ahead of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a very supportive community, right? In regards to you can, if you've got a question, there's so many people you can ask, right? Kind of not just,
Yeah.
I think that whole kind of just only asking your internal team, you've got like a large global team
Yeah.
there to support you.
And even I mean, a company that I work with now, man, same thing. If I Of course you do it in every company, but you've
Mm.
got your SMEs and they've been on the platform a long time
Yeah,
and they have the platform too. So it's not it's like it's contagious,
yeah, yeah,
One day you might be frustrated and you reach out to someone and you get an answer and you're like, "All right, I love my job again. Let's keep going."
yeah, 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 yeah. That's great. And for someone listening, right now who I think there's lots of people who kind of they feel stuck in their careers. They want to kind of do something different, but they just don't do it, right? What would you kind of say to them if they're thinking about making kind of switch in their career? See, yours is more employer driven, but even, there's so many, people who want to enter the IT space. Obviously, it helps to have that base experience, but it is possible if you put in the work. What would be your kind of advice there?
Just to do it, to try it. There's no harm in trying. You get a personal environment, you follow some of the tutorials on the training site. Even those tutorials are great and they give you
Yeah.
a little taste of what the platform can do, no matter which platform you're looking at, right? So if you don't like OutSystems, great. Try Appian. If you don't like that,
Mhm.
try Salesforce. For me, I really loved OutSystems. And again, not my career, music performance major, not something I
Yeah.
ever so, I was like, I could go back to program management and I don't want
Yeah.
to, but all you have to do is try and see how you can do it. And I encourage people that if you even have one little bit of interest in software development, just to give it a try. Do a Hello World tutorial and see if it is your jam. And if it's not, great. But fear is the only thing that would hold you back from trying it.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to get over that fear, but there's no risk if you're doing it at
Yeah.
home by yourself on your computer and just give it a
Yeah.
try. And if you love it, great, keep going.
Yeah. And I think, compared to maybe 3, 4 years ago, it's much easier to do it now with the introduction of AI, right? There's so much
Oh, yeah.
support and help you can get, even if you don't have a community, there's so much kind of support that's
Mhm.
out there and available that, it's probably the easiest time to kind of obviously not
Yeah.
easy, but support wise and kind of helping you get off the ground. A lot of information you need is available right in front of you.
Yeah. And ODC, man, oh man, it was, if I had had that at I would be dangerous.
Yeah. 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 Well, yeah, obviously that's where things are moving, right? Yeah, that's where kind of
Mhm.
all the new features are kind of making kind of a big push from the OutSystem side. And I'm
Yep.
interested to know, as kind of, and it may not be now, but or it may be depending on kind of where your project sits. But how do you feel? Obviously there's this concern about will we have a job? Will AI replace us and all these things, right? But a lot of people I speak to, they talk more about that the developer role is just going to change, right? It's either changed or going to change,
Yep.
But I'm interested to know kind of, from when you started with the platform to now where you are, how has the role as a developer changed in that period?
Yeah, I have seen it shift from everything was manual, right? You're gathering your requirements and it's all manual and you're setting everything up and it's all manual. And what I'm seeing with AI being adopted more broadly now, even now, we're using AI to actually develop our requirements
Hmm.
more. And we can use that to create a knowledge base, get our requirements, and they're much more refined, much more streamlined than we might have had before. So that's coming along. And then once we get into the role of using AI for development, now we can focus more on the bigger picture because AI is doing some of the menial tasks, right? Like you're creating your entities and
Yeah.
creating some of the screens. Now you can focus on the user and the overall experience and bringing the human element because that's not quite there yet with AI.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
to continue to make those seamless user experiences. So now you take your development mind and you shift it a little bit bigger picture and think of the overall experience and focus on human behavior too. There's a lot of sites before when you're developing, you're focusing on the attention span of the user. Well, it's much shorter these days, right? I mean, everything's on your
Yeah.
phone within half a
Yeah.
second
Yeah.
and its wingspan has gone to that of a gnat. And so so
Yeah.
now you can think of that experience and think of the human behavior aspect of it and let the AI do some of the more technical drag and drop, nuts and bolts of the application.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. Do you feel that developers will, move into more kind of digital system operators or architects,
yeah.
right? Where kind of, do you feel that's where kind of things will move and the day to day will change?
I feel like that's what would happen. Yeah, that you're again, you're at that higher level as opposed
Mm,
to the every click and drag and configuration. Now you can be more of the overall architect and look at it that you're not so much just a programmer anymore, right? You
yeah.
gotta put a couple more hats on
Yeah.
to be effective with it.
I'm interested to know this question I've asked a lot of people around. I think obviously developers coming through now have a different journey to developers 3 to plus years ago, right? Where it's kind of obviously
Yeah.
you learn a lot more. I call them old school developers, right? Where they learn a lot more of the basics before getting into the high level stuff. Where now at a junior level, there's so much information, right? So do you feel that there'll be kind of a difference in talent or just because the way things are moving? Experts, people will just become experts much quicker in their career.
Yeah, I do think that would change quite a bit. And so all you're doing right now is learning how to write prompts, right? And
Yeah.
then you're creating these applications and the role of the traditional developer is going to become more of I see that being more of like the behind the curtain, like Alice, Wizard of Oz. You're behind the curtain.
Yeah.
You still have major important role because technology can break,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and so the people who have that knowledge, they're still going to be real integral, but you're going to have like these armchair developers now because it is
Mm,
becoming so easy to create bots and to create automated
yeah.
processes just by configuring prompts. So you're still going to have this interesting balance of, people who are coming into it without being a traditional, but the traditional. So it's kind of being, I think it'll be a nice marriage of the two
Yeah.
in the future. I hope. At least that's my
Yeah.
utopia.
Let's hope so. Yeah. And you were talking about how amazing kind of ODC is, right? But I think you've worked more on the O11 side, right? So where do you think's the biggest opportunities to improve and evolve how applications are being built? And obviously, you've seen the difference with ODC and O11. So what are you kind of most excited about working with in the ODC platform versus what you kind of have right now?
I'm kind of excited about how we can bridge that OS11
Yeah.
to OTC. I think a lot of companies who are they're not resistant, right? They're just waiting for the
Mm,
right from like the federal government side. You're waiting for the
yeah.
FedRAMP signals.
Yeah.
Corporations are just kind of waiting until things they feel more comfortable with AI. So you're going to have those companies who need to bridge between O11 and ODC,
Yeah.
and I think that's a real interesting space to be in because you'll have a lot that you can automate and improve
Yeah.
and also get into utilizing the AI to make your applications much better. So I'm excited about that piece and I'm hoping that people start adopting things like I mentioned we're using AI to do some of the requirements.
Yeah.
I think the more, and I think I've heard this in a lot of different podcasts about adopting AI. If you're not ahead of it, if you're behind it, you're going to be behind so much. Everything's
Yeah.
advancing so quickly. that the more you can just at least try to learn it and adopt it a
Yeah.
little bit and use it and apply it as well as you can in your environment, that'll only help you. So I'm kind of looking forward to that space to bridge it into ODC and then get into
Mhm.
ODC
Yeah.
for companies who are using it in the US.
Yeah. Yeah. I think AI is one of those things where that it's moving so fast. If you leave it too late
Yeah.
and you don't kind of stay, ahead of the curve, you're going to get left behind really quickly. Because things
Very
are
quickly.
evolving just so fast.
Yeah, every hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And obviously, the OutSystems platform, they're kind of obviously really pushing the AI capabilities within the platform. Recently done some more kind of announcements about, agentic systems engineering and other
Mhm.
announcements. I think there's this race with all the platforms of, okay, who's
Yeah,
going to kind of get
yeah.
it right. And I think, there's going to be some are going to fail along the way. They're going to have to kind of, I think there's a thing where there's a rush to get the first version out. It might not be perfect, but let's just do it and then
Mhm.
work on it in the background, but from kind of what you're seeing with the platform and their kind of plan. And obviously there's new leadership, there's a change of direction, there's a big focus on AI and, they're positioning themselves less as a low code platform and now as a AI powered platform. What excites you the most as someone in the community kind of seeing these things evolving?
I am excited about just using the prompts to create. Like, I already really want to rebuild the application that I'm working on now,
Yeah.
taking what I know about the requirements, putting them into ODC and seeing what ODC pumps out. That to me is very, very exciting because you have these very big ideas, and the only real constraint that you have is how long it takes you to create it. Whereas with
Mm,
ODC, if you do the prompt and put it in there, boom, right? So
yeah.
I am really excited about the advancements they've made. The conference in Miami was super
Yeah.
exciting, and I got depressed because 'cause I'm back on O11. So,
Yeah.
I learned all these really exciting things, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, someday I'll apply this."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm real excited to make that transition myself to getting
Mm,
off of O11 and having to do all the things myself to rapid development where I can just put everything in, come back out, maybe adjust some things, and look at that overall experience. So, I look forward to that day where I can participate in the agentic
yeah.
solutions and create my own bots, and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it makes me pretty excited,
Yeah. Of course.
as you
Yeah.
can tell.
Yes, yeah. And I'm interested to know, obviously, vibe coding is very popular, right? And, what's your thoughts on vibe coding? Have you tried vibe coding yourself?
I don't have any spare time between between new puppies and work.
Yeah.
Yeah, not having enough time on my own to even try it out. So I really want to. It's just I don't end up having time between,
Mm,
the current workload for my projects and then, home. But I've always talked to a couple friends who do it and they're excited about it. They
yeah.
really want to they encourage me to get myself in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just need to make some time.
Yeah. Yeah. Finally, looking back at your kind of career, if you were to go back and start again, I'm interested to know kind of, is there anything you do differently? Is there anything you do faster? Or is there things that you did that you would probably ignore?
Yeah, that's always an interesting question, right? Because you're like, without this path, I wouldn't have gotten here.
True.
And so the steps that you take along the way really shape you.
Yeah.
But if I had seen what was coming back when I was in college, I probably would have been like, yeah, I'm going to do the music degree, but I'm going to get
Yeah.
to this next year because it took a while to find this passion
Yeah.
in a career. And um, it did take some bumps and bruises along the way to figure that
Yeah.
out. But I would have started this a lot sooner if
Yeah.
I had known this was what, was coming and what my career would have looked like. I think I would have had, maybe the heartbreaks and the heartaches would have been a little less, but
Yeah.
and I would have, had a little bit more passion and enjoyed what I was
Yeah.
doing, sooner. But
Yeah. Yeah.
overall, I don't regret my path.
Yeah, yeah, like they say, right? Your time's your time. When you're meant to kind of be exposed to
Yeah.
whatever, that's when it was
Yeah.
meant to be kind of brought
Yeah.
in front of you, and all those. And what I find with a lot of people I've interviewed and spoken to, who come from total different backgrounds, there's so many. Even when it's not technology, there's still so many transferable skills. Especially, I
Yes.
think with platforms that are low
Uh-huh.
code platforms, because I think the whole traditional developer of a person sitting in the corner just writing code, not being very sociable, doesn't work when it comes in the low code side because there's a lot of interaction with the business. The soft skills plays a
Mhm.
very, very big part in a
Very big.
developer's journey.
Yeah. And that's why I
Yeah.
think my time as a business analyst and then as a project
Mm.
manager
Yeah.
and program manager, it taught me all those soft skills.
Yeah.
I understand timelines and deadlines and scope creep and lots of scope creep
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
deep resolution. So I understand the importance to the business as well as the importance to the developer side. And so those soft skills definitely are something that I am grateful to have.
Yeah.
And I think does help, round me out as a developer.
Yeah, you understand both sides, right? So you know, kind of even you might be a developer frustrated with the other side, but you've been on that side, so you
Yeah.
kind of know where your limit
Yeah.
is to push.
Yes, exactly.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you speaking to me. Thank you for sharing your journey, and how you kind of rest and grown and you're excited about things to come. And I do hope you get access to ODC sometime
Me
soon
too.
for your. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Roz. I appreciate it.
Thank you.